Hi, welcome to Unpolitically Correct with your host Lee and my co host Charlotte.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the double standards between, well, my side would be men and hers would be women. I'll let you start.
All right. I definitely feel, before we start getting into all that stuff, that there are definitely some big major points when it comes to men as a whole and women as a whole and kind of what they go through
I agree.
as, their, you know, how they're viewed.
Absolutely.
I definitely feel like women go through more of a body type of thing.
And men would be more of the mental aspect of things.
Right. So women, I feel, are more so brought up being told, like, oh, you're too thin, you need to eat. Oh, you're too fat, eat a salad, like you need to work out. But at the same time, if you're too skinny, you must be on drugs. Wear makeup to be beautiful. Men don't like a girl with a lot of makeup on, stuff like that.
It's very back and forth.
Right. It's almost like you can't please anyone. And I feel like a lot of women tend to lose themselves in that because it doesn't matter if you please, like if the neighbor compliments you or this and that, like, or whatever. Well, it is nice being, complimented and everything. It gives that somewhat feeling of validation almost. I don't think it really is necessary to go about daily life being complimented or being told this or that because like I was saying, a lot of women tend to lose themselves in it because at the end of the day, the only person you need to be pleasing really should be yourself. Like if you want to do your makeup, great, but do it for yourself, not because you want to get someone's attention or you're just, you know what I mean?
Yes. On the aspect of men in that same stance with the mental mentality of it, men are higher for suicide rates because they don't talk about their feelings. Because, I mean, as a man, you're brought up to be strong because, women like strong men. Women like men who can take care of themselves, etc. Women don't be too emotional. Oh, you don't show emotion. Um, you
I
don't
definitely
talk enough. Oh, you talk too much. It's very hard to find a balance in
I
that.
definitely think and please correct me if I'm wrong. I definitely think that a lot of guys tend to fall under that sort of aspect where it's like if you show emotion, you're not really a man, you're considered weak and everything like that. But personally, at the end of the day, I feel like anything going on in regards to your mental health, whether male or female, you should be allowed to let your feelings be validated. If you need to cry, you need to cry. There shouldn't be anything wrong with it. I mean, there are some women out there, like who have been told, oh, stop crying, I'll give you a reason to cry, or
Men the
oh, you're
same.
just being sensitive, stuff like that. I feel like definitely there is somewhat of a tie there, but I do feel that men tend to get more of the short end of the stick when it comes to that because again, like men tend to be viewed more as, oh, you're the strong person of the relationship.
You
It's
have to be
your
the manly man.
right, like it's your job to like do this and that in a relationship and do this in your life.
And putting those on that all those responsibilities on a man causes a lot of mental illness to pop up. I mean, it's a problem if a man is too in touch with his feminine side, but if he's not sensitive enough and says something wrong to a woman, then he immediately hears about it. And I don't feel like women have that. Like, if I say a woman says the wrong thing to me, like, for instance, I saw a video. This girl on some interview was talking about Andrew Tate and how she would rape him with a strap on. But the minute a man were to say something like that, he is immediately dog shitted on.
Right. I mean, um, I believe like you went through something like that with our previous job. I'm not going to say what, obviously for privacy purposes, but there was a coworker who you were saying that was like kept like touching you and like making comments to you about how like they'd purposely like touch your butt and stuff like that, and just making comments that made you uncomfortable. And after telling them like stop, this makes me uncomfortable, they continue to go on. And after bringing it up to management, it seem to be like, oh, like here's a little slap on the wrist thing. But I feel like if a man were to do that to a woman, like on the spot, the man would be fired for
Yes.
because it and
It all falls back to men don't get sexually harassed, men don't get raped, men don't have these feelings like they do
right, but
because that's the way society views it.
in reality, they do. There are plenty cases where young boys or even like elderly people or people in their teens or just 20s, 30s, for any age, a man can be molested, sexually assaulted, anything like that. It does happen. I do feel like the media and everything like that.
It
And
silences everything that has to do with a man getting something happen to him.
to an extent, yes, I do believe that. But I also feel like on the woman's aspect, I do feel like it is talked about a bit more than it would be for a man's because women can there are some cases where they have gotten pregnant before, and like there's recently the 12-year-old rape victim up in Ohio, like this whole Roe v. Wade stuff, which I'm not going to get into
That's a
today.
whole other
Right.
issue.
I definitely feel like I don't think it's fair for someone to be raped and be forced to carry that child to the rapist, because to an extent and to all their own, I understand like some people do have like religious beliefs that fall into it and a bunch of other stuff, that could play into many different factors.
And I
But
think another reason it doesn't get covered as much in media is because a man isn't gonna want to tell someone, "Oh, I was raped" or "I was sexually
because
harassed," and when they
again, it
do,
falls under the whole "oh, you aren't man enough," or like as I'm sure we've all heard, like the high school most jokes like, "Oh, are you gay?" Or "Oh, no homo," stuff like that.
but when someone or a man were to bring it up, it's, "Oh, men don't get raped. A
Right.
woman can't rape a man." It's possible it's happened to many a man, including myself.
Right, and it's not just women who do it. There are some cases where men can rape other men or
James
touch
Charles.
other men. Um, but yes, so I definitely do think that there are a lot of factors that
I mean, if you look at people who are big in the media, like Cardi B, I think it was, she would drug and rob men. And for some reason, she's still top of the billboards and having all these women sing her songs and stuff on TikTok and other media. I mean, she's won awards. Yet this stuff did happen. She raped a few men. She drugged them. I'm not sure if she raped them. I'm not too sure. I know she drugged and robbed them. And people like that are getting big in this music industry as well. It's sickening. Just because you're big and famous, but look at James Gunn. Like, he got canceled over some tweets about shit like that. They're trying to cancel Chris Pratt because he made a couple of racist jokes. It's ridiculous in this, and you only see it happen mostly to men or male figures in power because women. A lot of these feminists, I say that with quotations, don't like men in power because I mean, of course, back in the day, feminism stood for something of this whole
being
idea.
equal to a man, not being better than a man.
Yes, and now it's, oh, I wear this pussy hat, I should have this. Just, it's definitely changed a lot, and I think that's an issue as well for men with facing that today in society of all men should die because we have enough sperm and all this stuff.
If you think of it, it's almost I'm going to use the Amber Heard versus Johnny Depp case. Both of them were famous actress, had their own, set of celebrity stuff,
Yes,
for example. But I do think that regardless of what happened behind closed doors, regardless of the court case, um, there may have been stuff we didn't see. There may have not been stuff we didn't see, regardless.
I mean, as
Um,
a survivor of domestic abuse, I was arrested for plain outright defending myself
right,
against the
right.
abuse.
But the reason I wanted to bring up the Heard versus Depp case was because I feel, and obviously I'm not a trained psychologist in any way. I can't speak from a professional aspect. This is just a viewer watching it type of thing.
Yes,
But I definitely feel like Amber really played up to the whole, oh, well, I'm a woman being beaten by a man type of thing, when she crying on the stand, everything like that, and I feel like almost, and obviously I can't speak for her. I don't know what goes on through her head. She has her own stuff
And her
going on.
dog stepped on a bee.
Right.
It's very tragic.
But I do think that, some women will, it's the same as like falsely accusing, like, like saying, oh, this man raped me.
I'm a firm believer. I know this is a bit off topic. I'm a firm believer. If you accuse a man of rape falsely, you should be in prison for that. Because that ruins a man's reputation. And if they end up getting arrested because of that, they could lose their job. All kinds of different things could happen because of your false accusation
Right.
against this man. So I feel strongly that you should have to go to jail because of that.
Right, and I mean it's almost like I feel like some women don't want to take a credibility for certain things or an accountability
Yes.
for certain things, and obviously like there are plenty of women out there who will admit, like, hey, like I fucked up,
Yes.
and apologize for what they did. Not all of them will, unfortunately, and I feel like men can do the same thing at some points, like, I'm gonna use cheating as an example.
Yes, like that.
Like if a guy goes out and cheats, like, no one wants to like come back and be like, oh yeah, I just, I slept with your best friend or whatever. I mean, there are some guys out there who will not really take accountability for it, but they'll brag about it almost,
Yes.
which is, I feel like, in some form taking accountability for it because they know what they did, and they're bragging about it.
Of course.
My idea of accountability is like stepping up, like, hey, like, this happened, and stuff like that. And I feel with that, with taking accountability, every action, whether good or bad, is going to have a consequence to it.
Yes.
And I feel like it's between those two people. I understand, like, people go to other people for advice, but ultimately, if if a man cheats on you, or even if a woman cheats on you,
Yes.
and they own up to it, and to, like, hey, like, whether it's I got drunk, or, I just, nothing really happened, I messed up. I don't condone cheating. I don't believe there really is an excuse for it.
Yes.
Unless I can understand if, like, let's say, like, I went out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just hanging out with my friends and everything like that, and a
Yes.
man rapes me, for example, right?
Of course.
Would that be considered cheating?
That's more of something you can't do anything against.
Right.
Like that post I showed you earlier about how
Right.
this dude found out that his girlfriend went out and fucked 4 other guys at once, and then you have these women in the comments talking about, well, why are you on here on Twitter about this, talking about like
Instead
what
of
has
defending
happened?
your relationship.
Yes, and after that point, there's no reason to defend that relationship.
Right. I mean, it's.
I mean, she made the conscious choice to go out and do said thing. She obviously doesn't give a shit about the relationship, and she's willing to do that.
Right, and I feel that, like, even though, like I said, I don't condone cheating whatsoever, you know, but if something outside of your, if you can't control what's happening, there are some women and some men out there
Mm-hmm.
who will, like, if they see it or whatever, or if, like, let's say I confide in a friend about it,
Mm-hmm.
and she turns around and tells the person I'm with, hey, Charlotte told me that she and this other dude had sex.
Yes.
Not knowing what fully happened, that would piss you off, right?
Of course.
To an extent, like, thinking, like, why, like, we're married,
But anyways, back on topic here. We do tend to stray a lot. Probably gonna be fixing that here sooner or later. With the double standards of men, going to like dating, for example. So when I go on Tinder, when I used to, I mean, of course. So like, I would see all these posts about these women who have 3 or 4 children looking for a man to take care of her and her 3 or 4 kids. It's like, oh, that we're like a package deal and stuff. Why, as a man who is maybe fresh out of college or something like that, why should I be willing to give you a chance to take care of 4 of the children, 3 or 4 children that obviously someone else didn't want to be with you with because of that, or like that person left you, why should I be the one who has to step up and take care of those 4 kids?
But falling under those lines as well, why is it fair to just assume that, like, oh, she spread her legs for no reason, or oh, she was the problem in that relationship? Why is it when a single mom is looking, for, like, whether it's, like, another husband or just dating for right now, and like someone eventually to step up to that father figure as a stepfather,
Yes.
why is it when why is it for, like, a man to be like, oh, why is it up to me to do it when the other person couldn't even deal with it and they're not my kids? Like, I don't believe that that's really fair on the single moms. I mean, regardless, I mean, there are some bad parents out there, but I do
Very,
feel
very much so.
like a good majority of single moms, they have to do what they have to do.
Yes.
You can only play in life like what cards you're dealt, so to speak. And if they are ready to, put themselves back out there and be like, hey, like, this is me, these are my kids.
Yes. I mean, to some degree, I feel like it's more of the way you portray it and the way it's shown on there. I mean, it's better. It's like, I have this one child, he's my world. Like, that is, to some degree, that's more like something me as a person would be willing to go for. Because, I mean, it's one kid. Like, you obviously are a good parent if you, like, that's your kid. I mean, that's a part of you in a way. I mean, versus someone who, like, if I were to talk to that person and it's like, oh yeah, I have 3 kids by 3 different baby daddies, like, then it's gonna be a little less likely that I'm gonna be like, okay, sure, I'm gonna take up that responsibility. When I mean, the 3 people before you didn't want to be with you, starting to wonder if maybe you're the issue and not the kids. I think that's another thing that plays into factors when, like, you're looking at something like that and goes through your head. Okay, so why did these 3 other people not want to be with you? What's your deal with that?
But what if it was a matter of they promised her something like, oh, I'm going to be there for you no matter what, and ended up leaving
Yeah,
right
I've been in
away?
that situation before. I mean, with a an ex of mine, she had 3 kids and an ex-husband. I mean, it was probably not a great situation because I was only like 18 or 19 at the time. It was not a great idea
Let
to
me,
get
let me
into a
ask you
relationship like
this.
that.
As a man, do you believe that most of the time when a guy meets a girl who does have kids, and let's say that, like with your scenario, has 3 different fathers,
Yes,
do you believe that the first thing that goes to the head of a man looking at the situation before, really, like, talking to her, getting to know her and stuff like that,
yes.
it does their mind go to, 3 different guys, 3 different kids, maybe she's the issue? Or do you think that they tend to be like, oh, well, maybe it was the guy, let me meet the girl and find out?
I definitely think it definitely varies on the person. In my situation, I was told a story of what happened, and in a way, I fell for that story. In a certain situation, it was alleged abuse, is why the kids were taken into foster care or taken out of her custody because of an allegation that someone in her family made. And I mean, I believe that. And then I was living with her for close to a year. I was heavily abused because in that situation, and that's when I definitely realized it's the person. It's not. I mean, of course, she only had the ex-husband, but I mean, I can see why that person left her because she was highly abusive. I understand maybe past situations have caused that, but once I was there, I could almost not escape due to situational things like the fact she would not let me leave at that point because, quote unquote, she didn't want to be alone. So I do think in some situations I mean, maybe you were married to someone. I mean, let's say you were married to someone, had a couple kids, and that person passed away. Like, of course,
Hmm.
it's going to take time for you to get back into the dating scene,
Right.
but that's a different situation compared to 3 different baby daddies, 3 different kids, or even more sometimes. It just depends. And reading the bios of saying no hookups, 3 kids. If you can't handle me, or you can't roll with them or whatever, something along those lines, then don't swipe right or something like that. Just in general, the way they portray themselves definitely takes a toll on that thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So if I see, let's say it's me in the situation, if I see um 31 whatever, it's like age and everything, pictures, a bio says something along the lines of I have, or mommy to Braden or some name, just for instance Braden, um full-time worker or something. It's like it shows they're making an effort as a person. Then that is more likely for me to swipe right than someone who's unemployed, who has 3 kids, living off the government. I mean, it looks like they're not really making that effort, but at the same time it could be
But I
outside
mean,
circumstances or anything. I
right. I
don't know
mean, there are
specifically,
some
but
cases like like EBT and WIC where you sometimes like you need the
yes.
help from the government.
And I mean, in certain circumstance like that, if it's all about the portrayal of the person, but more than likely, I'm gonna swipe on mommy to Braden just because it shows a more a established feeling to it, and it's more of like this person is in the right circumstances to want to be dating rather than just someone looking for someone to take care of her children. That's the way I see it. If it's just someone looking for them to take care of her 3 kids, it's a, not a great situation
Mm-hmm.
versus someone who's working, established, trying to find someone like a father figure for their children rather than someone who wants someone to just take care of their kids and them for nothing. I mean, I'm sure you see on Tinder. I don't know if your experience is with it, but most of the dudes on there just want to fuck. I mean, you might see a single dad or two, but that's more in towards that 40, 30 and 40 age range. The 20-year-olds, they just want to hook up. Men are Some men on there, of course, do want long term successful relationships, but a lot of the times it's, hey, I'm just here to hook up. My name's Chad. It's really
I know
a bad look.
before we started this episode, I believe you had brought up a point about the aspect when it comes to dating, without kids, obviously. I believe you had said something along the lines of, oh, a lot of women just want a man who's like above 6 foot, who makes six figures a
Yes,
year.
that's another standard that women have for men is things we cannot change. Like I myself, I'm roughly 5'10", 5'11". I'm close to 6 feet, so I'm still a pretty tall guy. But where's the love for the short kings? Like these dudes are 5 foot, 5'6", and women like I saw one on there earlier. It was like dude opened up with like, "Hey, I'm 6 foot. Oh, I'm sorry, I only date guys 6'5" and taller." It's like that's pretty fucking rare to find someone who's 6'5" or taller. I mean, we have friends who are that tall, of course.
I've met maybe like two people
Exactly.
who have exceeded 6'5". I mean, like my dad and my uncle, for example. For the longest time, they were the tallest people I saw. I believe my dad is 6'1" and my uncle is 6 foot even.
Yeah, I mean they're taller people, which
Right, right.
I mean, of course,
I mean, a
that's
lot of it falls under like genetically, where it's like their height or like the size of certain body parts and everything
yes. I
like
mean,
that. I mean, it all falls under it's you can't help genetics. But with that being said, on the opposite end, for the woman, you see a lot of stuff like oh, no big girls, or I don't like stretch marks, stuff like
I
that.
mean,
And
in
sometimes
that sense, I don't mean to cut you off, but in
mm,
that sense, it goes both ways heavily. So these women want someone who's 6'5"
mm,
with like a fucking 20-foot dick for some goddamn reason. I don't know why. It makes no sense. But a lot of that is things we cannot change. As a woman,
mm-hmm.
I mean, let's say this person, like this dude on Tinder or woman on Tinder says, has a bio that says 6'5" guys only, have to have like 12, baby packing 12 inches, make six
Six
figures a
pack
year.
only.
Yeah, like all these requirements. The dude over here, I just don't prefer bigger girls. And immediately they are attacked because they just don't prefer bigger women. In my case, I do. Most guys want a skinny girl, but immediately when saying that, they're attacked for it, which is very fucked up.
Right, and I believe for the women's aspect as well, like it sometimes does fall under genetics. Like me and my sister, obviously same parents, everything like that, but
Yes.
she's, I believe 5 foot even,
Very
maybe 5'1",
90
5'2".
pounds.
Right, like very skinny, good hourglass figure, like very very beautiful young woman.
Yes.
Whereas me, I am on the taller side. My bust is bigger.
Yes.
But with that, it does tend to happen as well. Like women with bigger breasts tend to have more of a stomach than girls with smaller boobs.
Absolutely.
So, but along that with the same thing, it's like, I've danced for all my life.
Yes.
When I took dance classes, it was always, it was never shorter than 2 hour classes, and I did it 3 times a week, every
Yes.
week. And plus that, as I got older and everything, I would go to the gym more as well. So I had the dance and the gym and everything, but I tended to stay at that sort of same weight group,
Yes, I understand.
so to speak. And I, for the longest time, I thought, like maybe it's the stuff I'm eating. So I would, eat healthier foods for a long time, but I still would end up not gaining weight, so to speak, maybe like a pound or two more.
Mm-hmm.
It was never like a drastic thing, but I do believe that it's more of a genetic thing, and there are some cases with, plus size girls and everything like that, where it's not necessarily what they are eating. It could be like their mom or their dad or both were, built the same way.
Yes.
And I do think that a lot of people tend to see a bigger person, whether it is a man or a woman,
Mm-hmm.
and they're automatically think they don't take care of themselves.
Yes.
They don't work out. They don't eat healthy. Stuff like that. But in reality, it could be a bunch of other stuff. Like personally, I've struggled with depression, all that stuff for all my life, and I definitely think that kind of like I had moments where I had no motivation to do anything.
Yes.
I just lay in bed, and along that I also have bulimia.
Yes.
And so that I feel really took a toll.
Yes.
On me, because I ended up, even though part of me knew, I was like, hey, like you're fine, like you're at an okay weight. It's
Yes.
not to the point where you're not close to diabetes, no thyroid issues.
You can get out of bed in the morning without
right
rolling around like a blob of jello.
Right. I mean, it but even though like I knew that like medically I was okay,
Yes.
every time I would look in the mirror, the first thing I would look at is my stomach.
Yes.
And so I feel like for a lot of women, it look wise, I mean, from a young age, you see stuff like Barbie and model and stuff like that,
Of course.
and you're told like, like not everyone is told this,
Can
obviously.
we copyright ever saying Barbie?
I don't know.
I hope not. Shit.
But
First episode we get copyright claim. Fuck. Oh.
But no, I mean, it's like, you're told, like, from a young age, like, men like pretty girls, so makeup, and skinny, and all that stuff.
Do you have a point
like,
I want to touch on I was thinking about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you look at some artists today, look at Bella Poarch, for instance, their song Build a Bitch.
Right.
So I feel like that is used as like this whole idea of like, you get what you get. I feel like men are the same way. It's like, this isn't Build a Dude. You can't just like pick and choose. He has 6 foot, what the fuck ever. You
Right.
can't choose the same way. And I feel like most body positivity issues seem to go towards the women's aspects of things, when men, including myself, do struggle with body positivity.
Right.
And another...
And I definitely don't think it helps, like, whether it's being said jokingly or seriously, like, everyone joke, like, oh, like, you got, like, oh, a little shrimp or whatever,
Yeah, I mean, like...
Even though, like, you could be, like, an average size or a decent size, And I do think that part of the reason is, like, maybe the person saying it, if it's another dude, for example.
Yes.
They might feel insecure about themselves, and so they almost project it onto somebody else to make them feel better.
The thing about the difference between men and women when it comes to compliments is men are really strange. Like, for instance, me and some of my friends,
Mm-hmm.
we got gay as shit together, but we support each other in that homie sense of like, hey homie, nice dick, or hey homie, you looking good today, you looking submissive and breedable, and there's just these jokes like that are like supporting each other. While women, on the other hand, it's more of it's more of cutthroat, really. Like getting a compliment, a woman giving another woman a compliment is something rare to see. I feel in the sense of like where men are more of open to like being there, like it's more of that brotherly bond when it comes to dudes, like me and the boys type of thing, that whole
Right.
thing. Well, I mean, with girls, they like to gossip and rumor and stuff. I know that's kind of a stereotype, but at the same time it is true to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
So with women, like you could have this group of friends, there's a good like 99% chance one of those friends is talking shit about the other friends with another one of the friends. And that's just the way it works in the feminine groups, I feel.
I do feel like sometimes though it's not so much as a gossip sort of thing. It's more so like venting to someone that also knows the person.
Yes, and
Like
sometimes I mean I've seen like that
like
happen.
personally, like again, I'm not gonna name any names, but I have my best friend. We both have a mutual friend,
Yes.
and but this mutual friend isn't always the nicest, and she tends to like take advantage
Yes.
when she can. And even though like we're friends and try to look past it, sometimes it's just a matter of I need to call my friend and be like, hey, this friend is stressing me out, like she did this and this today. And and then the friend might respond like, yeah, that seems messed up, or oh well, I can kind of see where she's coming from,
Yes.
stuff like that. But and so I do feel like there are like healthy gossip, so to speak.
Yes, and in a certain sense, I do feel like men can be toxic, men can be very petty. But it seems like women have control over the whole toxic and petty thing because for some reason, women that I've met or dated love to be toxic towards men for any kind of reason. Maybe it's a bad past experience or other situations like that of, oh, we got into an argument. My ex's dick was bigger than yours. He fucked me better and all this other stuff. They like to be
Or
toxic
like
in that
when it
sense.
falls under like the whole like, oh well, my ex would never say that to me, or
Yes.
my. But there have been some guys who have done that as well, like with my personal experiences and stuff like that as well.
Or it's more and also the same sense of bringing up, oh, you're acting like my ex in a male or female perspective. That's extremely toxic too. I mean, of
Right.
course, sometimes it is true. Um,
And see,
Women don't like to hear that they act like women before men, that
I
men have before.
I do feel like with the whole toxic thing nowadays, I feel like it's hard to kind of differentiate because I'm sure you've seen like on like TikTok and stuff like that and other social media platforms this whole like bad bitch ideology.
Yes, that
Well,
is.
I feel like it's great, you're confident in yourself, you feel beautiful in your own skin, everything like that. That's great.
But some
But at
women
the
take it
same
to a very
time,
far extent as
right,
well.
it's like, I've seen plenty of TikToks where it's like, oh, um, like for example, I saw one the other day. It was like if he ignores your texts all day, and then the next morning he's like, "Hey, sorry, I fell asleep early." You should respond with, "Oh, it's okay. I just got home. Stay toxic," type of stuff.
Yes, and I mean,
And people look at that and be like, "Yes, that's the type of bad bitch I want to be." I feel like
if you're in
you,
a loving relationship, there shouldn't be those aspects of things like that. Like, you shouldn't want to be toxic to someone that you care about like that
right.
just because, let's say, we were on the phone and I fall asleep, so you get pissed off and do something like that, it's gonna cause issues in the relationship
Right,
as well.
unnecessary drama, so to speak. But I do feel that in some cases it really falls under like people can see, like oh, well, I can do this, this, and this because I'm a bad bitch and I get this, this, and this from a guy.
Yes.
But in a lot of cases, most of the time it is satire, you know, and like if I were to do something like that, I feel like, you know, you would get kind of annoyed at that, you know?
Yes.
And same vice versa. But I don't understand the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? The whole logic behind like no one's goal in a relationship should be toxic. If I understand standing up for yourself, you know, it can sometimes come across toxic, so to speak, you know?
Yes.
And, you know, if you've had history of like being treated badly in past relationships and then you've like finally like, oh, okay, I know how like stand up to the situation, but it just comes across the wrong type of way.
Yes.
I can understand how that may seem toxic in itself and, you know, cause more unnecessary issues, even though that wasn't your intention.
Of
But I
course.
feel like a lot of people need to recognize that fine line of, you know, holding firm on your boundaries that you're trying to set in that relationship,
Yes.
whether it's friendship, relationship, parental, anything like that. And then also just being toxic for the sake of being toxic.
And reeling back into our topic of the double standards, men versus women. Honestly, another thing I really see is well, of course, toxic femininity. I think that's how I said that. I don't know. That I feel like, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I feel like in today's society, the double standards for men are held a lot higher. So standards for men are a lot higher than standards for women to some degree. I mean, I do think both have their own situations.
Mm-hmm.
One being physical, one being mental. Both, of course, suffer vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're a bigger guy in the community,
Mm-hmm.
male community, I mean, you're seen as the funny fat friend. That's just the way it is.
Right.
Hope we get copyrighted for that as well. It's mainly a song, but still. I mean, of course, like homies support homies, and that is a big culture which I'm glad to be a part of as a male,
Mm-hmm.
because as a female, I feel like I was saying before, you have to worry about what if this female friend is talking shit behind my back
Right.
because she's jealous of something I have or the way I look or anything like that. I mean, I'm jealous of the homies because the homies looking nice, you know, like. I have one particular homie, he's sculpted real nice and shit. I am jealous of that because I want to look like him.
I
But
believe.
I feel like there's a way to go about being jealous about that of like, okay, I can aspire to look like what I want to look like and use him as a role model in that
Right.
sense.
I believe that we.
And if some gay stuff happens along the way, it's okay. It's
I believe
homosexual.
we went through our own personal experience with the point you just brought up with the girl aspect.
Yes.
Um, the girl was cheating on the boyfriend,
Yes.
but then tried to do stuff to break us up.
Yes.
And but she sat there and was like, "But I'm both of your friends." You know, like she was my friend, she's your friend. You know, like we both could talk to her and stuff like that.
Yes.
But then and then like
She turned like a snake.
right
And that's the biggest.
and then turn the rest of the friend group by spreading that rumor, so to speak, to and kind of like picking a side almost to it's like a wolf attacking. Like,
that's the toxic femininity of
right.
situations with females. Um, that's the big thing I was hitting on before was women are quicker to turn on women than men are to turn on men. Like let's say with my brother, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
or for instance, I mean, let's say he gets this girl who
Mm-hmm.
looks really good, and you know, I was in that sense of not being in a relationship at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I would be fucking jealous if she looks like a fucking supermodel, knowing him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, of course, it's normal for siblings to be jealous of each other.
Speaking of your brother on a certain aspect of that, I believe you had brought it up with one of his past partners. With the whole, he would always make fun of you because you went after bigger girls,
Yes, and that's
and
just
then all of a sudden, like he's going after bigger people
Yeah,
as well, whether it's male or female.
I think the sibling rivalry really falls into play with that one. Of I mean, skinny girls are some of the meanest there are, unless they're like those weird horse girls or anything like that. Those like weird subgroup of females that are just like in that weird aspect of things.
Hmm.
There are skinny women who are just really, really odd like that. And I feel like bigger women, in a sense, are more open and understanding. And I mean, they're nicer people in general. A skinny girl is very. I mean, it just depends. Like you have friends who are really skinny,
Hmm.
and they're really nice people. They're good people. But a lot of the women I have talked to in the past who were skinny definitely had more of a overconfident attitude in what the fact that they're skinny. So I think that's why I've leaned more towards the bigger side of women, because I prefer that physically, and also, and to a certain point, they're nicer, they're more easy to talk to, and they don't have this really overconfidence to them. So I feel like they're down to earth is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
They're down to earth people, and they're really fun to talk to, and of course, personal preference. And I think, like I was saying with Tinder, that falls down to the whole personal preference. Like, if you want a guy who's 6'5" with abs and all this other bullshit,
Right.
that's your personal preference.
I believe I had read somewhere, it was an article that I had found. Um, I don't know if it's changed recently because, studies are changing all the time for same topics and everything like that.
Of course.
But I believe it was like men tend to go for looks first and then personality.
Yes.
And then a woman would go for personality and then for looks. Because if a woman likes your personality, you'll seem more attractive to them. Like, and that's why, like, they believe you see couples with, like, a really, like, like a petite, beautiful girl, and then, like, a guy who's on the bigger side.
Yes.
And they seem great, but then people look at it and be like, oh, he must have like money or something and stuff like that. Whereas,
Or on the same side of that, in my opinion, is a bigger woman with a really, really skinny guy.
right,
I mean, that definitely shows more of it's either he prefers that, or maybe it's just a really good personality. Because I mean,
right, right,
if you have a banging body, but I can't get on with your personality, it's just not gonna work.
right.
I mean, maybe I'm just like that subset of men who are like that.
I do definitely feel like a lot of people, they look around at like options, so to speak,
Yes.
and they develop this type. Like for me, for like the longest time, I would always see, and this was definitely like younger me, like
Yes.
the puppy love stages
Of course.
type of stuff. I would see like like posts on social media, and then like like the movies that our parents would take us to see.
Of course.
It's like there was always this like it
Knight
was
in
always like
shining
the
armor.
right, like he tended to always have like the same look, like like the certain cut, like of the in the fluffy brown hair, or like in the almost like golden brown eyes or blue eyes or green eyes, and they were skinny and muscular, had a good jawline, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then like, and the woman would be like this very beautiful, like long haired girl with like the perfectly shaped face and like the perfect body and stuff like that. And so, and for the longest time when I was younger, I would think, okay, so to be like a cute couple like that, I have to find a guy like that.
Yes.
And then as I got older, I realized like, okay, I kind of like goofy nerds with glasses, and and then like like in those like posts and everything, like it's always like a baby faced guy,
Yes.
like, and then I personally, like, I like dudes with beards and like like
I
full face
like
of facial hair, and it doesn't really matter to me if they're skinny, bigger, or somewhere in between, stuff like that, as long as like we can get along and we can match energies.
yes.
I feel like
As long as the vibes are good, it doesn't matter about the
right.
rest.
And even though I have that set type in my head, like, like, oh, like this sort of like golden retriever gamer boy, it's that sort of stuff,
Myself, yes.
I feel like it doesn't really matter, if you're, skinny as a twig, or, like 400-500 pounds, you know?
Yes.
Or anywhere in between. It's like if your personality, if I can vibe with you,
Yes.
you know, like it doesn't really matter what it looks like or what you look like.
Yes, and I mean, my personally, from that a masculine aspect, I see these dudes with long hair, big ass beards, and like muscly as hell. I'm like, I aspire to be like them. And
Like
it's
Jason Momoa
yeah, it's
or
pretty much.
Chris
I mean,
Hemsworth and
yeah, it's like I want to be like them. I aspire to look like them because I would. I know it's not so much as the like. I think it's more of like a Gaston effect almost of the way he is.
hmm
Of like, oh, I'm big and buff and women love me kind of thing. It's more of I just want to be the best looking guy I can be.
like the best version of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I want to know what my body can do. It probably doesn't help I smoke too much, but I work on that eventually. And of course, I don't eat the healthiest. But in that sense, as well, like you were saying about the thing, it made me think of a movie called Shallow Hal
hmm
with Jack Black, where this dude was always going for looks. So I think like a genie or something, I can't remember the exact details, but basically he was cursed so that ended up falling in love with this girl who he thought was super skinny, but was actually this bigger woman. And it got to the point where he was like, I don't care how she looks. I'm in love with this woman.
hmm
And I feel like in that sense, that's when a personality really shows, and it shouldn't take a genie like doing that to
Right.
do that.
'Cause, I mean, in reality, we don't have these genies or wizards or anything like that to show that, true beauty's on the inside.
Yes, I mean that is the true thing. I mean, if you just have a shitty personality, then it's not worth it. I mean, I've dated plenty of women who, I mean, I got along
And
with
I do
well.
want to point out, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I feel like a lot of people, when people say shitty personalities, they need to realize that, like, just because you don't vibe with them doesn't mean they have a shit personality. You know what I mean? It's like if they are like a complete, like, they're the most horrible person ever.
Yes,
Like they treat you badly. I believe that is a shitty personality. But if you just don't vibe with them in that aspect, I've noticed like some people are like, oh yeah, she had a shit personality, just because he didn't really have the same
I
energy or thing
think
with him.
it definitely falls down to vibes and what vibe they give off,
Right.
and in the same sense of if you're just a fucking square and it's like boring as hell, there's someone out there for you. It might not be, this certain person you're dating because it seems like a lot of the times, like myself included, I go for louder women because I'm not gonna stand up for myself, but they sure as fucking will. Oh, I didn't order mashed potatoes, but it's fine. No, it's fucking not. He didn't order these mashed potatoes, type of thing, and that's why I chose women who had that stronger, more I would say sort
The
of
more kind of like independent woman.
yes, more stronger masculine personality about themselves. Like they're not afraid to speak up for themselves, and that helps me because I don't like to cause issues like that. I don't like. I'm not really good for standing up for myself. If I have a woman beside my side who's going to do that for me, then it helps me in the long run because I don't have to do it. I mean, a lot of men don't like the louder women like that. I mean,
But
like
I do think following along with that, it shouldn't always be up to the woman
of course.
to defend their partner. I mean, it's great, doing it, but at the same time, it's like, at what point does it feel more like a chore for them?
Yes. But anyways, we're at our definitely getting a little too off topic, but at the same time, I think we discussed a lot, so we should reel it back in and kind of
Wrap things up.
wrap things up, or like kind of. So basically, as we've talked about today, there are a lot of things. I mean, women both have issues of their own. There's a lot of double standards that cause issues in today's society, and that's just the way it is in today's society. And I mean, we can do our own things to change that ourselves, but overall, it's up to that person and the way they feel to change. It might not change, but hey, that's the most we can do. But I don't know.
Hmm?
That's that's my take on it. What about yours?
I'd have to say the same thing. All I have to say to any viewers watching is just remember to
They're listening. Remember that.
stay.
To any viewers
Listening.
watching this phone while they listen to a podcast, fucking fools.
No, but to anyone listening, just remember whether you are male or female,
Yeah.
just please remember to stay true to yourself. You know, respect yourself. If you need to set boundaries, set boundaries. It's okay to show emotion.
I mean, to be fair, I know you've spoke about this when we first started talking. You were like, "Yeah, I just pretended to be this quiet, reserved girl," and this immediately after I knew I had him, I showed my true self, and I was like, "Yeah, I bet you did." I miss that quiet girl. Shit. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, love. But anyways, that's the episode for today. Next week or next episode, I don't know. We haven't really discussed.
We're working out the schedule.
But anyways, next episode we'll probably be diving into the
gender status of things.
I was gonna say politics.
I don't think we're ready for politics.
I think I can talk a lot about politics.
Okay, well.
Well, anyways, we'll get into the LGBT side of things because that's had LGBT. Yes, exactly. Two genders. Let's go. Kidding. Not really. But we'll get into that next episode. If this goes well, then we'll keep doing it. Just,
And if you have any other suggestions, our Instagram handle will be in the description if you ever want to send in a request. Or if you just want to send in a personal story that you want to get our opinions on.
Or money. We take money too. Cash donations, greatly appreciated. I'm kidding. But, no. But yeah, we will see you next time. Hi, welcome to Unpolitically Correct with your host Lee and my co-host Charlotte.
Hello.
Today we're going to talk about the double standards between, well, my side would be men and hers would be women. I'll let you start.
All right. I definitely feel, before we start getting into all